This is the solution for the Prepare app for publishing and deploy coding exercise, which is based on this tutorial that can be found in the Tethys platform documentation. The goal of this exercise was to highlight common considerations that you will need to take into account as you prepare your app for publishing and deploying. In this tutorial, publishing refers to publishing code of your application on an open source or openly accessible platform. For example, we will be demonstrating how to push the app code to GitHub. Deploying means installing the app on a server running a production version of Tethys Portal where it is intended to be used by the end users. Many of the activities that you'll do to prepare for the one you will also need to do for the other, so they are presented together here. The first thing that you should consider before publishing any code to a repository or even committing it to a local repository is to remove any sensitive data from the repository. This can include email addresses, passwords, API keys, or anything else that would jeopardize the security of your app if it were made public. In our case, we have a few parameters embedded in our application, including the email of our Google Earth Engine service account. So before we can publish this, we need to move that to somewhere else. I would recommend for a case like this to use app settings. To create the custom settings, go to app.py and import custom settings from the Tethys SDK app settings. Then scroll to the bottom of the class and define a custom settings method. Tethys expects this method to return a list of these custom setting objects. We have two settings in this case, one for our service account email and the other for the private key file. Both of them are of type string and each have a description. We're not requiring them because you can use a personal account instead of a service account. Then we need to change the logic in GEE methods to use the service account settings. To do so, first import the app, and I'm going to alias it as just app, and then get the settings. This is done by using the app get custom settings method. You just give it the name of the setting that you'd like to retrieve, and its value is returned. Next, we need to change this logic a little bit to use these values instead of those coming from the params file. So let's go ahead and first add a few checks. First, we'll see if the service account and private key path are defined, and os.path.is file the private key path. So we want to make sure the file is there. Then we'll go ahead and attempt to log in using the service account credentials. Finally, we need to replace these values with the values coming from the settings. Now we can remove our import of params, and in fact we can delete the params file, but we'll hang on to it for a little while longer so that we can copy these parameters into our settings. Let's do that now. I'll start by copying the email address and going to the web browser to Tethys. Go ahead and click on the settings button located in the header. If you scroll down, you'll see that you have two new settings, the service account email and private key file, showing up under the custom settings dialog. Go ahead and enter the email here, and then go back to the params file and get the path to the key file and paste it here. Be sure to scroll to the bottom of the page and press save to persist the changes. Now we can go back to PyCharm and delete the params file, thus removing it from our code base, making it so that we can now publish this code without sensitive information in it. But before we move on, let's make sure that this logic is still working. So let's go back to Tethys, to Apps, in the Earth Engine app, and go to the map view, and we'll just load a data set to verify that it's still working. And it looks like it's still working.